I am going to invite up our analyst, Suveksha Bujel, to discuss a Public Service Commission. And after that, we'll invite the chair, Kumar Barbe, up. There you are. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Suveksha Bujel, and I'm here to discuss the Public Service Commission. PSC is primarily funded through special funds obtained through assessments on public service company revenue. The operating budget for PSC decreases by 97.5 million or 42.4% to 132.3 million in fiscal 27. This decrease is primarily associated with funding for rate credits in fiscal 27 being 100 million lower than in fiscal 26. 200 million was provided in fiscal 26 to provide residential electric customer bill credits. This was funded through the alternative compliance payments revenue in the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. Of the total 200 million, Chapter 626 of 2025 required half of the funds be distributed during a peak summer month and the other half be provided during a peak winter month. First round of the fiscal 26 bill credits were applied in either August or September, and the second round of the bill credits will be applied in February 2026. Fiscal 27 allowance includes 100 million for rate credits pending enactment of legislation expanding the allowable use of SEEF. Exhibit 1 on page 3 shows the overview of PSC spending excluding the contingent funding for rate credits. PSC's fiscal 27 allowance totals 32.6 million excluding the rate credits. Personnel expenses total 26.1 million or 80%. Outside of personal spending, the largest single item in fiscal 26 allowance is 1.9 million for outside subject matter experts and technical consultants who assist PSC in cases and proceedings pending before PSC, other federal regulatory bodies, and the courts. This is an increase of 1 million or 118.9% from fiscal 2025 actual spending. Spending in this area can vary from year to year depending on the volume and types of cases that are heard by PSC. The budget of PSC also includes Maryland's cost associated with participation in Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Commission. Associated funding in fiscal 27 is 540,000. Exhibit 2 on page 4 is the proposed budget change chart. PSC's federal fiscal 27 allowance decreases by 97.5 million or 42.4% compared to fiscal 26 working appropriation, primarily associated with the funding for rate credits in fiscal 27 being 100 million lower than fiscal 26. Excluding the funding for the rate credits, PSC's fiscal 27 allowance increases by 2.5 million or 8.3% compared to fiscal 26. The largest increase is in regular personnel expenditures, which increases by 2.6 million. On page 5, there is a discussion on the dedicated purpose account appropriation plan for use by PSC and a discussion on administration bills. The fiscal 27 allowance of the dedicated purpose account includes 82 million in special funds from the ACP revenue in the SEEF, of which 15 million is allocated for PSC. The Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, as introduced, includes language defining the authorization and purpose of the funding. SEEF funds for PSC are to be used for grid enhancing and advanced transmission technologies, with 10 million to be used for research and 5 million to provide grants to utility companies for construction and modification of transmission facilities. Senate Bill 386 and House Bill 897, as introduced, make changes to regulations associated with electricity transmission and distribution. The bills authorize PSC to provide performance-based incentives for the development and operation of advanced transmission technologies. The Department of Legislative Services recommends adoption of committee narrative requesting that PSC submit a report outlining the uses and planned uses of the $15 million from the dedicated purpose account. The fiscal 27 allowance for PSC includes $100 million for rate credits contingent on the enactment of legislation expanding the allowable use of SEEF. Senate Bill 386 and House Bill 897 fulfill this requirement by authorizing for fiscal 27 only ACP revenues in SEEF to be used to provide awards to electric companies to be refunded or credited to residential customers for electric service as a one-time distribution. On page 6, we have personnel data for PSC. The allowance authorizes 3 new regular positions that are associated with PSC's move from shared human resource services to internal resources. Out of the 24 total department-wide vacancies as of December 2025, 7 positions have been vacant for more than 1 year. Due to recent vacancies being higher than the vacancies necessary to meet the budgeted turnover rate in fiscal 27, DLS recommends increasing turnover expectancy to 7.9%. This results in a reduction of approximately 705,000. Starting on page 7, key observation 1 discusses utility termination and arrearage. As shown in Exhibit 3, the residential prices for both electricity and natural gas have generally increased over the past 4 calendar years. The average price of electricity for residential customers in October 2025 was 22.3 cents per kilowatt hour, which is approximately 16.1% higher than October 2024. The residential price for electricity in Maryland has grown faster than the U.S. average during calendar 2025. PSC attributes the increase in utility prices to increases in supply, distribution, and transmission costs. Supply and transmission costs are based on the amount of generation available to meet the demand. Fewer generators and higher demand have contributed in price increases. Of these 3 components, PSC only regulates distribution prices. Natural gas prices are largely seasonal, with prices reaching their highest points from late summer to early fall and declining during the winter months. At its seasonal high point in July 2025, the average price of natural gas delivered to residential customers was 25.86 per thousand cubic feet. Exhibit 4 on page 9 shows that the total dollar amount of outstanding arrearage for residential utility customers began to increase significantly in June 2024, and this growth has continued in calendar 2025. In March 25, a new high of $377.6 million was reached, which was $93.4 million more than the highest value of arrearage in calendar 2024. PSC notes that although it is difficult to point at the exact reason for this increase, sizable increases in standard offer service rates, which started in October 2023, could have led to arrearage increasing 6 to 8 months later. Total outstanding arrearage decreased in October and November 2025. We are asking PSC to comment if the recent decrease can be attributed to the bill credits that were applied in August and September of 2025. The number of monthly utility terminations for select utilities are shown in Exhibit 5 on page 10. October 2025 had the highest number of utility terminations in a single month since at least calendar 2018. PSC notes that termination restrictions in summer and winter months might have led to higher terminations when the restrictions were lifted. PSC also notes that increasing utility rates have led to more customers falling behind on bill payments, which have contributed to growth in arrearage and terminations. DLS recommends adoption of committee narrative requesting that PSC submit 2 reports during fiscal 27 containing residential utility termination and arrearage data. Second key observation, starting on page 11, discusses complaints and enforcement against third-party energy suppliers. Exhibit 6 on page 12 shows the total percentage of all eligible utility customer accounts that are enrolled with third-party retail electric suppliers as of December 31st of each calendar year. Since calendar 2013, supplier enrollment has declined each year and was 5.5% as of October 2025. PSC uploads quarterly reports providing data on complaints against third-party retail energy suppliers on its website. However, quarterly reports for the first 2 quarters of fiscal 26 have not been published yet. PSC should discuss the reason for the delayed posting of the complaint data and any barriers to timely reporting. As shown in Exhibit 8 on page 14, PSC reported 193 complaints filed against third-party suppliers in calendar 24 and 79 complaints filed in the first half of calendar 25. The third key observation covers Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding for utilities. IIJA funding for electric grid resiliency is available through the Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership, also known as GRIP program, which is administered by the U.S. Department of Energy. Awards for the first round of GRIP program supported 58 projects across 44 states, including an award to the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative to fund the Transmission, Distribution, and Communications Resiliency Initiative. SMECO was awarded $32.5 million. The award included a $16.75 million cost share from SMECO. SMECO started receiving reimbursements for associated expenses in August 2025. As of January 26, SMECO has received a total of $1.4 million. In October 2024, $4.2 billion through the second round of GRIP funding was announced. Funding would have supported 46 projects in 47 states, including $50 million to the Baltimore Gas and Electric, $50 million to Potomac Edison Company, and $100 million to Exelon Joint Utilities for projects across 6 states. In October, Exelon Joint Utilities reported that the second round of GRIP funding for both BGE and Exelon Joint Utilities had been terminated. However, Potomac Edison reported that it was requested to submit additional data by the U.S. Department of Energy. Starting on page 17 is the operating budget recommended actions. Recommendation 1 reduces funding to increase the turnover expectancy to 7.9%. The second recommendation modifies language, making a portion of the appropriation in PSC contingent on the expansion of allowable uses to more specifically identify the expanded uses for which these funds are needed. The third one recommends adopting committee narrative requesting information on the use of funds transferred from the DPA to PSC. Fourth recommendation is to adopt a committee narrative requesting arrearage and termination data. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank you. Chair Barbe, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of this subcommittee. I am joined at the table by our Deputy Executive Director, Amanda Best, Executive Secretary. I've only been chair for 28 days and having to learn these titles. I'm also joined by Nikki Wiggins and Kathy Fuston, who you will be seeing as representatives for our agency, and Chair Emeritus Fred Hoover. So let me just come straight to the point. The governor intends for this agency to act with speed, innovation. He wants us to be aggressive watchdogs for the ratepayers of the state of Maryland, and also he wants for the energy and environmental agencies of our state to de-silo and be more collaborative. Already I've engaged with the new MEA Director Kelly Speaks Bachman. She's terrific and terrifically experienced, and you will be very impressed by her when she comes before you for her budget. And of course, I will be meeting with my good friend Serena McElwain and any other members of the administrative agencies so that we can promote the objectives of sound, reliable, and affordable energy policies for the people of the state of Maryland. Let me get straight to the basic crux of the matter. DLS wrote an excellent report. I want to thank you for that. Basically, they wish to advise you to cut our budget because we have, I believe you just said 24, but my understanding is that we had 23 job openings. So I'll just come straight to the point. You know, we are an especially busy agency, especially in this time. We have a great number of functions that we are undertaking. We're going to have PEPCO and Washington Gas before us in April and May. We have to carry out the mandates of the legislature on issues such as more dispatchable energy, writing regulations for large loads like data centers, preparing a procurement for nuclear energy, and also procurements for battery storage. We also are going to need to increase our oversight of FERC and PJM. I want to especially emphasize that this is going to be a real point that we have to emphasize. I would like to hire at least one other regulatory economist and another legal individual who has experience in the FERC space in order to help us really engage in a substantial manner. I'm very happy to tell you that I was assigned about 5 months ago to be Maryland's representative before OPSI, which is the oversight body of in the PJM region of PJM, stands for Organization of PJM States Incorporated. We have one representative per state. I'm Maryland's representative. And so these functions are extremely important, and we are understaffed. And let me just very quickly tell you where we are with respect to the open positions. We have hired 5 people. 4 are in the final HR DBM review before offer, and we expect these individuals to come on board in February or March. 9 are in the posting and interview stage, which means that literally DBM is posting the jobs, and I believe 4 are being interviewed actively, and 5 are in the posting stage. 5 remain in HR at the DBM agency, and we are also actively filling positions through internal promotion. So far, 4 individuals like that. I want to emphasize that since becoming chairman last month, hiring people is my top priority. Every time I talk to a division head, I ask them where they are, and I'm starting to become a little annoying on that point. And they are responding brilliantly, I have to say. The last thing you want is for the chair of the commission to be breathing down your neck on these things. Now, let me say that we have some unique advantages here. In spite of the fact that we traditionally have not been able to hire people because we pay less money than other similar agencies like FERC or the District of Columbia Public Service Commission, because of the exodus of highly qualified people from the federal government recently, we have really been able to step up our hiring. And it's my commitment to fill all of those positions at least by the middle of the year. I want to do it by May, and I think we're going to be able to get there. We do have a bill that has been introduced by Senator Feldman on the Senate side and Delegate Linda Foley on the House side, which is going to give greater flexibility to the Public Service Commission with respect to human resource assets, which will allow us to respond more in real time. In the past, before Jake became the head of DBM, the head of the agency, there were many instances where we made an offer to an employee, to a prospective employee, and the approval didn't happen fast enough, and they found jobs elsewhere. And that's part of the embedded 23, 24 position openings that we have here. And I can't emphasize enough that certainly in the issue of PJM versus and FERC, that we have some brilliant people who work with us there, really brilliant people. But we have one brilliant person. I need 2 and maybe 3 brilliant people working on this, and I need to be able to walk into those meetings the way the Pennsylvania representative is able to, with an entourage of economists, engineers, and legal individuals who understand all of these things, because a big driver of our utility rates are going to be the way the market rules are written with respect to data centers, and to make sure that there isn't phantom load and overcounting of data centers, which I believe everyone in this space thinks that there's a substantial overcounting of data centers. And unfortunately, that's driving the supply and demand problem that is increasing our utility rates in the capacity market right now. We need to really step up our game there, and I intend to be very aggressive. And finally, I would just remind you all, you probably don't need any reminding of this, our agency is not funded by taxpayer money. It is funded by a charge that goes directly to the utilities, and it ends up being roughly 50 cents per year per ratepayer, which is 4 or 5 cents per bill per ratepayer, which is a bargain if you ask me. I mean, I will conclude by saying that we, the Public Service Commission, are the first and last line of defense for our ratepayers, your constituents. We, as DLS staffer very ably noted, we don't have any control over the price of supply, and we certainly don't have any control over the weather. But distribution and the issues of market rules at PJM, that we will have influence certainly on distribution, but we have to really step up our game with respect to PJM, and I stand ready to do that. And again, as always, it's an honor to be in front of you all, my friends, and I look forward to answering your questions on this or any other topic.
Thank you. Senator Rosenblatt.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Couple of questions. One is on these vacancy issues, but particularly on needing more firepower in dealing with PJM and FERC. Can't you contract?
We could, but I would prefer. You know, we've got one person who's truly brilliant who works for us, and his depth of knowledge is really spectacular. I want 2 more of him. We could contract, but these issues are not just PJM and FERC issues that are very deeply embedded in the structure of our market here in Maryland and how we run our
right. I'm not against having more positions. I'm just, but from actually getting the work done, if you can't get people hired in a reasonable period of time, PJM ain't waiting for us.
I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be able to do that because of the
on federal things, the federal stuff. Okay, right. Thank you. That's helpful. Are there other areas where you're understaffed?
Yeah, for example, in our Consumer Affairs Division, we are understaffed, and I think we are down right now. Again, she has been really terrific in stepping up and hiring people. I think we are down.
No, I didn't mean vacancies. I meant lack of pins. Not enough slots. I mean, you're asking for more slots on the policy side, right? On the economist side.
Are we, or are we just?
No, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Senator. So we have made a push to try and grow the agency over the last few years. Like you said, we have been largely, I would say, understaffed in terms of PINs. And so we have been fortunate enough to get, I believe, about 16 in the last few years. I think to your point, with the workload that is before us, we have seen incredible growth in our workload, as we noted with some of the charts in our response testimony. And with some of the bills that we anticipate could be coming, it's a lot of work. And so we could certainly use more. I think we're trying to focus on filling the vacancies to assess, okay, this is really where we
Okay,
need
well, this
more
is just,
staff.
maybe I shouldn't understand, but
Yeah.
the extra firepower you need on the FERC PJM stuff, those are with pins you already have or not?
Almost. I mean, we have the flexibility to be able to deploy people, to hire people for those purposes, and I intend to do that to the maximum amount, degree available. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the 34 vacancies that we have right now will incorporate a lot of what I want to.
I think Commissioner Hoover has your back.
He apparently does.
The only specific position that we probably would be useful for us to have is we're trying to add another member of the Office of General Counsel. So those are the lawyers who actually directly litigate the
Got it.
matters.
And we've actually hired 3 people to the OGC office already, and we need one more probably.
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's really important. I mean, the governor's made big commitments on this stuff. You've made big commitments on this stuff. And I don't want to hear a year from now or 2 years from now, we could have, but we didn't have the resources. So I'd appreciate getting back to us with what do you need in terms of money, what do you need in terms of pins to be confident that you can execute the strategy. That
I'll
you're
be
pursuing.
happy to clarify that.
Thanks.
with greater specificity.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks.
Senator Lewis-Young.
Thank you. Could you elaborate on what you mean by overcounting of data centers?
Sure. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm a hyperscaler, Kumar, the data center developer, and I want to build one and only one data center in the PJM region. Am I going to just file an application in Maryland? No. I'm going to also file one in Virginia and Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia, and I'm going to see which one really sticks. Now, we in Maryland try to vet these things. PJM asks all its utilities how many anticipated data centers are there, and most of the utilities will just do a data dump without really vetting what's going on. Now, recently, PJM has had its critical issue fast path process, and the 14 governors and the White House have had their principles process for handling the data center issue. One thing that needs to happen is we have to have a rule that really establishes what counts as an anticipated data center. I would prefer for it to be a developer who has an actual signed agreement and has put down money. Because right now, I was at a conference and one of the speakers said that if you added up all the data centers that are being talked about in the United States, but compared it to the actual manufacturing for chips that would be in those data centers, it's a 5-to-1 ratio, meaning you could never build all of those. It would be a disaster to price all of those phantom data centers into the marketplace for the auction, because it'll just drive up prices for data centers that we all intellectually acknowledge are not going to be built. So that's the phantom load problem that we have to really solve, and we have to solve it immediately, as fast as possible. Otherwise, you have a broken market.
I wanted to mention, because I noticed that your response did not address one of the analysts' requests, which was if you could talk a little bit about this $15 million that's part of the governor's budget from the authorization from the dedicated purpose fund. I know it sounds a little squishy. They are expected to be available to the PSC to be used for grid advancing and advanced transmission technologies. $10 million for research, $5 million to provide grants to utility companies. Just, is that something that you will envision, or you can tell me, we don't know yet, and we will come back to you?
Good afternoon, Senator. Yes, we have been trying to track all the bills that come in and kind of find further direction beyond what was in just the budget bill that we saw. We haven't found that direction yet, so I would say we're still waiting to see if that happens. If we do see it, then obviously we would be able to probably better respond to what we would anticipate using the money for. Right now, it is a little squishy. We don't have a good idea just based on the language that was in the budget.
Thank you. I just thought it was important to get out there. Thank you. Senator Sally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my county, they're working on battery storage and some solutions that I believe would be a help in some areas for supply.
Yes.
I see this is just one way, I guess you can say, we can try to make a difference. And I know our biggest problem is having the resources and being dependent upon Pennsylvania. And I know we're constantly talking about these other issues that are outstanding. For instance, these lines that they want to go across our state and the eminent domain, which you've heard probably more than once. Are we trying our best to see in areas of the state of Maryland where we can get back some of our storage, where we can restore some of the things that we need to cut back these costs, where everybody in this room and everybody else around us are just concerned and worried about paying these crazy amount of bills and knowing that am I going to be able to have enough money to pay groceries? Am I going to have enough money to go and pay these other bills? I mean, are we trying to find resources in other ways and methods that just make sense that we can make a difference in a matter of decent time?
Sure. First of all, well, thank you very much for the question, Senator. Let me begin by complimenting the legislature for having passed the Next Era Generation Act, which basically says we're going to take an all of the above strategy. That's very, very useful. I also want to compliment the legislature for having passed last year the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, which allows us to more expeditiously deploy renewable resources, which are the fastest to put electrons onto the grid. Let me also just very briefly say that I know that there are two very notorious transmission proposals before us. I can't comment on them specifically as one of the judges who's going to vote on them. Be assured that we are following the letter and the spirit of the law with respect to soliciting public testimony, going to the public and listening to them in their home counties, having a very transparent and open process, and only after hearing all of that testimony will we get down to the issue of deciding yes or no on these projects. Nothing is prejudged at the Maryland Public Service Commission, and we very much respect the public, and we treat them with respect because they are our bosses. Let's talk about other resources, though. One of the constraints that we live under, not just in Maryland or PJM, but throughout the United States, are the long timelines and the very high expenses associated with, well, let's talk about natural gas. The wait is 7 years for a natural gas turbine because there are only 3 major international companies, General Electric, Vernova, Siemens, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, who manufacture these things. 7-year wait time. It used to be that a 1,000 megawatt gas plant cost $1.2 billion. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, it was $2.4 billion. And now it's brushing up against $3 billion for that same kind of a plant. And it's just becoming more expensive because of the interplay of supply and demand. Part of the reason I want to make sure we are not overcounting data centers is so that the supply and demand will not be quite so out of whack, and perhaps the prices will end up coming down. So I guess the point of, I think the perspective we have to take is to do the fast things first, while also planning for natural gas generation, the conversion of coal to natural gas, and hopefully even doing a procurement for nuclear energy as well. In the short run, it's renewables, it's batteries, which the batteries have been described as the Swiss Army knife of the grid. They can store energy, they can stabilize frequency and voltage. Then after that, demand response. I want to create more incentives for people, for ratepayers, to sign up for these programs so that when it's really hot, yes, the thermostat, if they wish to have it be so, will be adjusted upwards. If they decide they don't want to do that, they can set their thermostat back down in real time. There's no compulsion in any of this. The reason it works is during the summertime, a lot of people are away on vacation and they don't notice their thermostat being adjusted when they're at the beach, for example. So I want to the opportunity for us to dramatically peak shave in the summertime especially. There's a great opportunity for us to be able to manage this with only like 2 or 3% of the population participating. So this is something that I want to try to implement between now and this coming July. So to answer your question, to wrap this all up, Senator, I'm an all of the above kind of guy. I want to do the cheap things and the fast things first, but I want to also make sure that the markets work properly so that natural gas, when we begin to bring it on board, and we're doing a procurement for natural gas right now, as a matter of fact, that it'll be as economic to the ratepayers as possible.
And I appreciate all that. I really do appreciate every bit of that. There's times when, like you were saying, how there's peak times that, we really need to manage better. And I think at the same time, we have a lot of people that don't have an understanding of that. Maybe if we can find a way for our constituents to have a better understanding of why we have those times that they need to better manage and find ways where they don't go beyond those peaks, and maybe those prices won't be as much, even though they're still pretty crazy right now. But I think we can do a better job maybe of mentioning that more and give them that information. So I appreciate it.
Senator, I agree with you. I stand ready personally to go to your district and talk to your constituents, any of your constituents if you so wish. I think you're absolutely right. People need to be informed and educated, and they need to be told how they can help solve this problem without it being an inconvenience to themselves.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to my friends in the Senate, and I look forward to talking with you in the future at any time of your convenience.
Thank you. Great to see you. Take care. I'd like to turn now to the Office of People's Counsel. Ms. Bougel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The operating budget for the Office of People's Counsel increases by $150,000 or 1.8% in fiscal '27 to a total of $8.4 million. Exhibit 1 on page 2 shows the overview of agency spending. $4.5 million or 54% of the budget is directed for personnel expenses. The second largest chunk is for outside legal services support, which totals $3.4 million or 40% of the budget. Exhibit 2 on page 3 is the proposed budget change chart. As mentioned earlier, the budget for OPC increases by $150,000 in fiscal '27. The largest change is in personnel expenses, which increases by about $127,000, primarily due to increase in employee and retiree health insurance. There is also an increase of around $75,000 associated with outside legal services and support. On page 4, we have the personnel data. 28 positions are authorized in fiscal '27, which is unchanged from fiscal '26. Of the total 28 positions as of December 2025, 1 was vacant. Moving on to the first key observation, we have a discussion on OPC's workload. As shown in Exhibit 3 on page 5, OPC participated in 226 cases in fiscal '25. Of the total cases, 149 favorable decisions were issued. Although OPC case participation decreased in fiscal 25, OPC workload has generally increased in recent years. Compared to fiscal 21, the number of cases that OPC participated in increased by 35.3% in fiscal 25. In addition to the growing case participation rate, the complexities of the proceedings in which OPC is involved have also increased in recent years. Exhibit 4 on page 7 shows the number of calls made to OPC for assistance. In fiscal 2025, 2,833 calls were made, which is an increase of 46.3%. This is the highest number of calls since at least 2009. According to OPC, this increase is primarily associated with increasing utility rates. OPC also notes that the number of calls from organizations on behalf of clients has increased in fiscal 25. DLS is asking OPC to discuss whether it has continued to experience increased call volume in fiscal 26 and the impact of the prolonged cold weather on the number of calls. On page 8, we have the operating budget recommended action. DLS recommends concurring with the governor. This concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, we will move to David Lapp, People's Counsel. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Heddleman and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We thank Subcommittee for the report. We concur with that and the governor's allowance. I wanted to share some of the highlights of our office's impact. We try and do some estimates of what we save customers, and our numbers are about $800 million over the past 5 years. That would be about $20 million for each $1 million in our budget. But that estimate, we think, is quite conservative because our office, just our existence, our advocacy acts as a deterrent to higher rates, to proposals from utilities and other entities that really, and that deterrent effect really can't be calculated. It also doesn't address our advocacy work that is not cost related in terms of, we advocate for service, and we have a lot of different service issues right now. We have a BGE call center issue. We weigh in on reliability and terminations and file actions with respect to those issues that don't directly impact costs. The other reason why those numbers are conservative is that a lot of our work is long-term. We engage in proceedings before the commission. Some of those drag out for a while. We have dockets that are open for years and years, but we also have litigation that goes on for years. And an example of that is litigation regarding the capacity market, but not the capacity market that everyone thinks of, which was July 2024 when it jumped by 800%. 2 years ago, there was 2 years before that, in 2022, there was a capacity market auction in which PJM made a mistake in an assumption into its inputs into the market. It's a little complicated. I can explain that if you're interested. But anyway, so we were involved at PJM and then at FERC in challenging that. It went up to, I'll try and keep it short, but it went up to 2 different federal appeals courts. And we brought the case that was joined by other parties. The PSC, the Maryland PSC and the Delaware PSC joined our effort. We led that effort. We did all the briefing. We put in all the resources. In the case was resolved in January, Maryland Office of People's Counsel versus FERC, and that involved $180 million in a mistake. And eventually FERC said, 3 FERC commissioners said, we acknowledge this is a bad mistake. It's unfair to customers, but our hands are tied and we can't fix it. That's the issue that we appealed on, and it relates to customer refund rights under the Federal Power Act. And the federal court for the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with us, and they sent it back to FERC. So we are very optimistic that maybe we'll get that $180 million in refunds. That case has been dragging on for over 4 years, and it's not over yet. But that case also vindicated very important customer refund rights under the Federal Power Act. We have a separate complaint pending on the 2024 auction that resulted in the price spikes that a lot of customers, BGE customers, are not feeling the impacts of that right now this winter because the commission issued an order that's really helpful to customers to keep it off of winter bills. But we have a complaint on that, and PJM actually fixed that rule going forward that we're complaining about and said it's unjust and unreasonable going forward without applying it to this auction. And that refund win that we had just a few weeks ago hopefully will impact this decision. They're ruling on the July 2024 auction, and that would apply up to $5 billion for customers across the PJM region. But it takes time to do this litigation. And so some of the work we're doing just plays out over a longer period of time. Our work is complex. It's challenging. We have staff like the commission that is specialized and underpaid relative to what the private market. So we have people who are committed to public service, but they also have bills to pay at home. Our workload has been significantly increasing over the past 5 years, and just because of legislation, last session alone, we count 7 new dockets at the Public Service Commission, plus added work in at least 3 existing dockets. We didn't get more resources for that. That's just, comes out of the work we're doing. And we have lots of issues, as everyone is aware, just from rising energy bills and affordability issues. Our customer assistance unit has overall experienced a huge increase in call volume because of the affordability crisis, because people are finding it difficult. Many of the calls are about people struggling to pay their bills. Right now, this winter, because there's a moratorium on terminations for Baltimore Gas and Electric under a commission order. It's down a little bit now, but as soon as that moratorium is over and customers are subject to terminations, we expect to see a huge increase in call volumes. Just turning a little bit to our budget, unlike the PSC, our budget cap under the statute was not increased in 2024. The PSC's budget cap was increased substantially. Ours was not. We're managing, but it won't be long before we need to see an increase in that cap. We don't necessarily need it this session, but we certainly are looking to the future because we just have significant resource constraints. We are significantly under-resourced relative to our usual opponents in proceedings like the utilities. The PSC rate cases, we have a lot of them. We had a slight drop last year. We have a lot this year. The Chair Barve mentioned Washington Gas and Pepco rate cases that'll be before the commission later. They'll be heard before the commission, but we are already deeply engaged in that work in terms of testimony. So we have consultants that we use as witnesses in proceedings, and those consultant rates have increased substantially. An example is we had a Washington Gas rate case, I think 2 years ago, and I believe the consultant costs, so we have to put on experts on different issues in those cases. And at least in the current one, we have 5. We probably had 5 in those. They address different aspects of the rate case. And 2 years ago, the cost was in the neighborhood of $150,000 or so. And our RFPs that we put out for the consultants for the current rate case were $300,000. So they doubled. We were able to negotiate and knock those down a little bit, so it's not quite $300,000, but all of our consultant technical expert rates have just, they're spiraling upward, and that takes a significant hit out of our budget. I did want to mention that we are actually a member of PJM. We have a vote. All the consumer advocate, state consumer advocate agencies are members of PJM with one vote. Collective, we have one vote. There are 14 states plus, or 13 states plus DC in PJM, and each of us have a vote. But our votes are 14 out of well over 1,000 votes. So we don't have a whole lot of sway, but we are very engaged. PJM has hundreds of meetings a year. We have folks on these PJM meetings, like working out different rules and issues every single day. Chair Barbe mentioned the SIFB critical issue fast path on data centers. We submitted our own proposal. We led an effort that was joined by other state consumer advocates. That's often the place. We are one of the most active states at PJM. I mentioned earlier a couple of complaints we have. We have at least 5 complaints outstanding at FERC addressing these various issues. Senator Lewis Young, you mentioned the data centers, and there was discussion about the phantom data centers, the over forecasts of data center load growth. We, in July before the capacity market went up, it sent a letter to the PJM board and advocated before the PJM board to get that forecasting right. That was well over a year and a half ago. We sent another letter to the PJM board and follow up in October. We have press releases on our website, just looked at them. So we have July 18th, 2024 and October 15th, 2025. We sent detailed analyses of how extreme those forecasts are. I took a note here. PJM, the utility submitted the PJM for the 2026 forecast, 80,000 gigawatts by 2046. That's an estimate that others say is the data center load growth that will occur across the entire country. But they were saying, these utilities were saying, it's all going to be in PJM. There's estimates of $1 trillion of data center capital investment by 2028 in PJM, which will never happen. These are examples of how these over forecasts are driving up PJM's projections. Those projections are what determine one of the parameters in the capacity market. And according to the PJM Independent Market Monitor, the last 3 capacity market auctions, the price was driven up by $23 billion as a result of actual and projected data center load growth. So those projections are hitting customers. A lot of those costs have not been reflected in bills because the capacity market is earlier. It happens, and then the rates, the costs don't hit customer bills for a couple years. But this is something that we've been extremely active on, for a long time. It's now pretty much common knowledge that there's a lot of phantom load, but back a year and a half or so ago, people weren't talking about it so much. So I'm going to wrap up. I've been talking for a little bit. I did want to. We have really dedicated public servants in our office. They are committed to our work. They work really hard, put in long hours often, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to our hardworking staff. And I should have mentioned this is Carissa Ralbowski, who's our Chief Financial Officer. I'm sorry, I skipped over that in the beginning. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Senator Lewis Young.
So I think you mentioned that you concur with DLS's budget projection, which is that you only increase your budget by 1.8%. Salaries alone are expected to increase by 1.5%. But I see your call volume has increased by 46% just in 1 year, and I didn't hear any reason to suggest that might decline. So I'm trying to do a reality check. You said you thought you could hold on for a while. However, I believe this year's budget It's going to be challenging, but far less challenging than the next 4 years. The out years I see as being far more challenging.
I certainly agree, and I should say that our workload has been growing tremendously. We've had 6 added pins since a little over 5 years. That's certainly been helpful. It's not going to be sufficient going forward. We certainly could use more pins now. We're also sensitive to, tight budgets for everybody. We did in the last year add a new, and we've also moved some slots around. So we shifted some pins into attorney positions where we needed more and less administrative staff. So we've been trying to be very efficient as an organization. We did add somebody to our consumer assistance unit in the last year, I believe, recently, to help with that call volume. But certainly we're concerned that that's going to continue to rise. And we are stretched for sure. Do you want to add anything?
All I was going to say is that we also have, as a specially funded agency, we have budget flexibility with, being able to bring in a budget amendment at the end of the year, especially when we look at the cost of these consultant costs that are coming in. And we feel like because we have that flexibility, we can kind of see how our budget is going throughout the year. And we know we can come back at the end of the year and say if we need to bring in additional appropriations. So it's a nice, as a specially funded agency, we're able to do that.
You mentioned a cap. What is your cap?
Our cap is, I think it's 0.74% of utility revenues. So I think the PSC's is 0.17 or.
I think it's now 0.5.
No, the public service, 0.5, okay. And right now, our budget is, we have about $1 million in terms of between our current budget and the revenue cap. But the revenue cap is based on utility revenues, and that's a moving number.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we will next move on to the Maryland Department of Transportation, the Aviation Administration, and ask analyst Kelly Norton to join us.
Thank you. We're going to begin with page 1. We have the operating budget summary. The budget for fiscal 2027 increases to $270 million, a 4.2% increase compared to fiscal 2026. Moving on to page 2, if you look at the handout, you have the PayGo capital budget summary. The summary on page 2 is incorrect, and it does not include the other funds, which are made up of passenger facility charge revenue and special transportation revenue bonds. The correct chart can be seen with the handout, and the fiscal 2027 allowance decreases to $273 million, or 16.7% from fiscal 2026. Back to the analysis on page 5, we have Exhibit 1 that shows the total passengers at BWI from calendar 2016 to 2025. The airport has continued to outperform the lows of the pandemic era, increasing from 2021 through 2024. There was a 6.9% decrease in 2025, most likely due to the reduction of flights in November from the government shutdown. On page 6 is Exhibit 2, showing the passenger market share for BWI, Dulles Airport, and Reagan Airport. In fiscal 2025, BWI's market share decreased to 32.5% from 34.1% in the previous year. Dulles Airport has the largest market share with 35.7%. An important financial calculation considered by airlines when deciding where to fly is the cost per in-plane passenger, or CPE, at a given airport. CPE costs are the total of terminal and airfield costs related to flight activities which are paid by the airport and subsequently reimbursed by the airlines. Exhibit 3 on page 7 shows the CPE for the 3 airports. BWI's estimated CPE increases to $11.57 in fiscal 2025. This increase is not surprising due to the decline in deplanements. BWI is expected to have the highest CPE in the region. The fiscal 2027 budget includes a proposed efficiency appropriation of $6.5 million in special funds to provide additional funding for snow removal. The Maryland Aviation Administration has been awarded one discretionary grant in the past calendar year under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, totaling $1 million from FAA's Airport Terminal Program to continue work on its replacement of Martin State Airport's air traffic control tower. Exhibit 4 on page 9 shows the overview of agency spending in fiscal 2027. BWI comprises 96% of the operating budget, followed by Martin State Airport with 3.3% and Regional Aviation with 0.3%. Exhibit 5 on page 10 has a proposed budget and provides a breakdown of the areas of growth between fiscal 2027 and 2026. Fiscal 2027 increased $10.9 million over the 2026 working appropriation. Personnel expenses account for a $3.8 million increase from fiscal 2026 to 2027, with the largest portion being $2.2 million for employee and retiree health insurance. Other significant changes are $2.1 million for the airport shuttle and van services at BWI, $2.2 million for insurance, and $1.4 million for fuel and utilities. Moving to the operating revenues generated through flight activities, concessions, and other operations at BWI and Martin State Airport, Exhibit 6 on page 11 and 12 shows the special fund revenue and expenditures for MAA from fiscal 2025 through 2027. Operating revenues cover operating expenditures over this period and most capital expenses. Personnel data can be found on page 13. Regular positions decreased by 14 from the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. These positions were transferred to the Secretary's office as part of MDOT's efforts to consolidate IT operations. MAA had 12 more vacancies in December 2025 than at the same time in the previous year, an increase from 36.3 to 48.3, or a 33% increase due to the hiring freeze and hard-to-fill positions. Looking to the 2026 Consolidated Transportation Program, or CTP, Exhibit 7 on page 14 shows the 6-year programmed capital spending from fiscal 2026 to 2031. The 6-year total is roughly $958 million, with nearly 48% going towards system preservation and 35% for expansion and efficiency projects. On the next page, Exhibit 8 provides the list of projects in fiscal 2027. The fiscal 2027 allowance is $273 million. The largest project planned for fiscal 2027 is the Runway 1028 Rehabilitation Project with $75.7 million, followed by the Passenger Movement Modernization Project at $36.5 million. Exhibit 9 on page 17 has the capital cash flow changes from fiscal 2026 to 2027. Fiscal 2026 has increased $5.8 million since last year's CTP to $328 million, and fiscal 2027 will decrease $55 million from the working appropriation. Exhibit 10 on pages 18 through 19 shows the cash flow changes from the fiscal 2026 allowance to the fiscal 2027 appropriation. As you can see, the cost of major construction projects decreased $20.1 million, and the Development Evaluation Program decreased $4.9 million. These decreases were offset by the $29.7 million increase in the minor program and the $1.1 million increase in salaries and wages. Exhibit 11 on pages 20 to 21 shows the breakdown of cash flow changes from fiscal 2026 working appropriation to the fiscal 2027 allowance. Major construction decreases $47 million, and the minor program decreases $28 million. The Development and Evaluation Program increases $20 million, leading to an overall decrease of nearly $55 million in fiscal 2027. Exhibit 12 on page 22 shows the percentage of first-year funding and ongoing funding in fiscal 2027. Ongoing funding is $214 million, or 78% of the allowance, and the first-year funding accounts for $59 million, or 22%. Exhibit 13 shows the breakdown of the first-year funding for fiscal 2026 and 2027. There is $14 million of first-year funding for fiscal 26 and $59 million for fiscal 2027. Exhibit 14 on page 24 shows the major change from the last CTP. 2 projects were added, the North Cargo Pavement Rehabilitation and Runway 15R/33L Pavement Mill and Overlay projects at BWI for a total cost of $49 million. On page 25 are the recommended actions, and they are to concur with the governor's allowance for the operating and pay-go budgets. There's an update on the BWI Marshall Airport concession contract on page 26. Since the last session, BWI has entered into a 23-year contract with the concessions vendor, Fraport, the incumbent vendor. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? The analyst? No. All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, I know that you are here, and do we also have Shanetta Griffin, Executive Director? Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Hedelman and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Katie Thompson, Acting Secretary of Transportation. I'm joined by Shanetta Griffin, Executive Director of the Maryland Aviation Administration. And we are really fortunate to have Shanetta on our team. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to discuss MDOT MAA this afternoon. And thank you to Kelly for her review of the department's budget. The Maryland aviation system serves as a critical engine for economic prosperity, global connectivity, and public safety. I want to acknowledge Executive Director Griffin and her team at the MAA for leading BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport and Martin State Airport, and for supporting public use airports across the state of Maryland. Ms. Griffin will provide additional details, but the MAA team is working to advance important capital projects that will improve BWI Marshall and Martin State airports for our customers and ensure modern, efficient, and safe facilities for all of our customers and partners. On day 2 of my role as acting secretary, I was proud to join Ms. Griffin and the MAA team, as well as Governor Moore, Southwest Airlines leadership, and other stakeholders to celebrate the opening of the Concourse AB connector and baggage handling system, a major investment in the future of the airport. This critical project will shape the future of the airport for decades to come. We're also hard at work to modernize and enhance our other aviation jewel, Martin State Airport, including an important project to construct a new air traffic control tower. Now I'll turn it over to Executive Director Griffin to provide some additional information and address the DLS analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Well, good afternoon, Chair Hedelman and members of the committee. For the record, I am Shanetta Griffin, Executive Director and CEO of the Maryland Aviation Administration. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the MA's fiscal year 2027 budget request. I also want to thank Kelly for her work with us throughout the year. The Maryland aviation system plays a critical role in supporting travel, tourism, and economic development. Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, Martin State Airport, and public use airports across Maryland serve the aviation needs of residents, businesses, and visitors. BWI Marshall Airport is the state's key gateway for domestic and international travel, along with major cargo operations. The airport produces an annual economic impact of $11.3 billion while creating and supporting more than 107,000 jobs throughout the region. BWI Marshall remains the busiest airport for cargo operations in the region. Passenger traffic dipped last fiscal year at BWI Marshall, and we expect a similar result this fiscal year. Airline industry's challenges, including limited aircraft availability and bankruptcies, along with economic pressures and a lengthy federal government shutdown, affected travel. We anticipate growth to return in fiscal year 2027. In our capital program, we continue to advance important projects that will improve BWI Marshall and Martin State airports for our customers while providing critical facilities and additional capacity for our airline partners and other stakeholders. Acting Secretary Thompson mentioned, for example, that we opened the Concourse AB connector and baggage handling project in January, a major multi-year capital improvement. While the entire program of work will conclude this summer, major components are now open to the benefit of our passengers and our largest carrier, Southwest Airlines. Another project to support Southwest Airlines is their new airline maintenance facility, which opened last summer. This is the first Southwest maintenance hangar in this part of the country. Other facilities and airfield projects were also completed. At Martin State, we broke ground last year on the project to build a new state-of-the-art air traffic control tower. The work will replace the current facility, which is more than 80 years old. Going forward, the MA's 6-year capital program totals $958 million for BWI Marshall, Martin State, and regional airport support. The program includes over $450 million for critical state of good repair projects, including BWI Marshall runway, taxiway, and apron pavement rehabilitation projects. I want to acknowledge and thank the Maryland General Assembly, along with the Moore-Miller administration, for the critical transportation investments that were approved last year. The MA received $25 million in additional transportation trust fund investments for important capital improvements that will improve safety and preserve our aviation system. An important example of this investment is the major runway rehabilitation project at BWI Marshall that will kick off this summer. This project is receiving nearly $17 million in TTF funding, which allowed us to leverage more than $57 million in Federal Aviation Administration funding for the project. The work will resurface the entire length of our primary commercial runway and the intersection with our critical secondary primary runway. This important project is being closely coordinated with our airline partners. I also want to emphasize that throughout our capital program, we work to maximize federal funding opportunities. 27% of our 6-year capital program currently is funded with federal dollars, totaling more than $259 million. I appreciate the opportunity to brief the committee today. Thank you for your continued support and guidance. At the MA, we are prepared for continued success. I am extremely proud of the good work and dedication by our team to support aviation across the state of Maryland, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions? I have a couple. I noticed on page 13 of the report that the allowance transfers 14 positions to the Secretary's office as a consolidation of IT and different modes of transportation. And maybe this has been in the works for a while, but I'm new to this position. So, and maybe this will come up in the Secretary's, your opportunity to, when we have your budget meeting. But I figured I'd put it out because that is a chunk of positions that are moving.
Yes, it is, and approximately a year and a half ago, I believe, Secretary Wiedefeld, based on internal consultations, concluded that it would be prudent for IT support reasons and cybersecurity reasons to have an integrated and consolidated IT organization at TSO that would be responsive to TSO's needs and our modal needs. So we wouldn't have disparate IT and cybersecurity approaches. That resulted in the transition of PENs, a number of PENs from each of the modes into TSO. And I can check, and Samantha may know when the PENs actually transferred. But that consolidation is currently underway.
And you have your own internal IT people. You're not relying on DoIT. Right?
Correct. That is correct.
You have your own. Okay. Okay. The other question I have is, and I did not have an opportunity to really go through it because I just got it. Your response to the analysis, and I'm looking at the a little bit of digging into why the airport passenger numbers are down slightly, which also ties in some to the, well, potentially to the next page, which is Southwest Local versus Connections. And I just wanted, if you can comment on that. And I know, and also emergency runway closures, what that is. And I totally get the federal shutdown. We understand the 10-day period and how that translates into a reduction, of course, in traffic and business. So if you can talk a little bit about that, and then I'll go on from there. Thanks.
All righty, so in regards to the passengers being down, so I think one of the biggest pieces of that is certainly looking at how our airlines are distributed. We have Spirit Airlines went through a bankruptcy. We're still kind of waiting to see what that looks like. So they then again started to deter a lot of their flights. They were our second largest carrier outside of Southwest Airlines, so that's having a major impact. Frontier is certainly kind of wondering and seeing what that's going to look out, so they haven't done a lot of increases. But really, when it looks at what our airlines are facing across the country, is a lot of what the, looking at aircraft and being able to get aircraft delivered. So that has a major impact on them. One, increasing flights, being able to have right-sized flights, so then the larger, smaller sizes of passengers. In the DMV area, we're certainly experiencing, because of so many of the individuals that are no longer working on the business side, so we're seeing a lot of decreases in regards to that. And then just the economic impacts of, what's going on across the country. Again, we're seeing a lot of those impacts. We're not just the only airport that's experiencing those types of things, but certainly our region is probably having a little bit more impact there. In regards to Southwest, so Southwest is changing their business model. Certainly as they're dealing with their new investor and moving toward some of the different types of offerings that other airports have. They just added, paying for seats, looking at baggage differently as well. But they're also looking at the fact that we're having more connecting passengers in our airport than usual. So that's another part of their business model. So as they consider us, because we're their largest on this eastern region, they don't use the word hub, but we're one of the largest providers for them in this eastern region. So they have more of that transfer passengers that we have. Originally, we're considered to be an origination and destination, so the community really drives the number of passengers that we have. So as those passengers are coming in, and then we have more of the transfers that Southwest have, we're starting to see that balance change, where we used to have more origination passengers, now we're having that balance kind of change. So we're fluctuating and kind of seeing what that means from us for a revenue standpoint and how it impacts some of our other revenue drivers. But again, working with Southwest and working with our other airlines, we'll see that balance out a little bit more. But with their changes that they're making now, that we see kind of a big influx of that right now.
So I'm just curious, because I am new to this, and we are so incredibly reliant on Southwest.
Yes.
Are these conversations you have on a regular basis with them to understand kind of the trends and what their future thoughts are? Because obviously, as you stated, this has tremendous trickle-down effects to our local area too, to the parking, to the concessionaires, et cetera.
Most certainly. We meet with Southwest on a weekly basis, actually, but with all of our airlines, we meet on a monthly basis, where we're always understanding their flight patterns, when they're going to change aircraft, when they're going to add flights, when they're going to take flights away. So yes, that's a continuous conversation, because one, we have to think about the terminal capacity and TSA and all of that, but then again around revenue. So yes, continuous conversations. And I apologize, I did not answer your last question in regards to emergency runway closures. We always want to maintain a state of good repair for our entire airfield. The project that I mentioned, Runway 1028, is a major project of significance because of the fact that our two parallel runways intersect. The most recent emergency shutdown that we had was to repair a fault in that intersection. So we are very anxious to get this project started so that we can completely repair that and have that for longer term, so that we're not dealing with these types of emergency repairs. But making sure that our entire airfield, which it's an aged airfield, and so we need to again tackle all of these airfield projects that we have to make sure that we're bringing up to safe and efficiency for our entire airfield. So that project is very significant, but that most recent closure was in regards to that.
And I'm sure the weather didn't help.
Well, not at all.
All right.
Thank you.
Other questions, Senator Sully?
Thank you for the information. As you know, Myra and Martin's Airport, we have a lot of things going on, and we're looking into seeing how more we can bring in aviators and training them and bring in aviator mechanics And so that's just something we're looking with our community college, to bring that in because I know it's a priority right now in our nation. So just letting you know, we're working on that as we speak. But also, I see the runways and some of the maintenance that they're going to be doing, extending that, but also servicing. Are we possibly looking into bringing more opportunity in the area? More, maybe, not just because you're private, but maybe some small commercial or something that we could possibly bring in the area? Is there a possibility for that?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, very much so. Because of the fact that we're considered the fixed-based operator there where we provide fueling, maintenance, operations at the airport, we want to really capitalize on that. We have individuals that are interested in building hangars and bringing their facilities there. So we are in active conversations with many industries and trying to get them to come to Martin State. Certainly, you know what has happened with the Air National Guard that's there in their facilities. So we're working with them as well to see if some of their facilities can be utilized for additional hangars. We want to build out new T hangars. So yes, economic development there at the airport is very significant for us. We're going to work on the runway. We've got obstructions that we're going to be dealing with to be able to have the capacity that we can to bring in other aircraft and helicopter traffic, those types of things. So yes, we are actively considering other opportunities for the airport to grow.
Thank you. And that was just the other thing that you're opening up, the areas where we can have some hangars. I think one that we're looking at for maintenance.
Yes.
So we need that type of work now in our nation for aviator maintenance.
Most certainly.
Because we have more aviators, more repairs, and so that's a great opportunity in our area that we can bring and we can train, and they can go anywhere in this country that do that type of work. But it's a good paying job for a person and great opportunity. So if we can expand in that, give that opportunity for our people in our state, I think we can do some really good stuff. And then maybe other states we can be that example. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Senator, I just want to add, I agree, there's tremendous opportunity to train young people in aviation-related work, and there's a desperate need in industry and in the public sector, including at FAA, for engineers, pilots, air traffic controllers. So it really is an opportunity to provide services that almost everyone needs, and a great opportunity for economic growth and development in Maryland. So we'd be happy to have conversations with you about opportunities, and we are fully supportive of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Had a feeling. Senator Rosenthal. It was a total setup.
Apprenticeships. You know, the governor has a big commitment to expanding apprenticeships. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future targets increasing apprenticeships starting in high school across occupations. Other agencies, I mean, transportation has done something in boosting apprenticeships over the past year or two. But you're such a huge agency with so many different operations. Do you have either department-wide or in the aviation administration any strategy on how to get us from where we are to where we need to be?
That is an excellent question. I'm 5 weeks in, and I don't know the precise answer to this, but Shanetta may be able to speak to the airport, and Samantha may be able to address our approach generally for MDOT.
So from the airport perspective, one of the places we're starting is very young. Every year we have a summer youth initiative where we bring out students and show them all aspects of what they can do in the aviation industry. And then we're showing them on simulators, we're taking them there talking to the airlines, we're showing them all aspects. So that's something that we'll continue to do, be able to showcase that. Through our regional aviation segment of our work, across the entire state of Maryland, they're working with schools, they're working with some of the other universities that even have aviation programs, and how we can educate them on being able to get engaged with the aviation industry. We're also working with some workforce development opportunities where we're looking at what does that mean. Advanced air mobility is going to be another area of which we can look at mechanics, we can look at people that are working in different areas of aviation. So we're also working with universities to talk about what that means from them, not only working just at maybe BWI, but across the state of Maryland in this new technology that's coming out, but also how we're building them to be able to come and work in an airport and aviation environment. I think the education around that is very important because people just think of pilots, they think of, folks working out on the ramp, but anything that we do in the aviation industry is similar to what's happening in all of our school systems. So yes, we are actively finding additional ways of which to make sure that we're building out the future aviation leaders.
Well, a couple of suggestions. One is, if you aren't already, you should be plugged into the statewide network of career counselors we set up under the blueprint. They are set up across the state, middle schools and high schools, to expose kids to career opportunities. And you can go through the Maryland Workforce Association, which is the workforce boards. Secondly, the Department of Labor has just launched one of the governor's programs called Pay Per Apprentice, where the state will pay a certain amount to an apprenticeship sponsor. And there's extra money. There's several $1,000s per apprentice, but it's actually $7,500 per apprentice who's in high school. And so there's money there like right now, and it's first come, first serve. So I'm encouraging folks to learn about it, share it with your own HR, but also with other folks in the industry to try to get involved. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you,
No,
Senator.
thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Community Supervision, and going to ask Josh Weinstock to join us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Josh Weinstock, and today I will be presenting the fiscal 2027 budget for DPSES Community Supervision. The budget total is $145.5 million, which is a $3.3 million increase, or 2.3% increase from fiscal 2026 working appropriation. This unit includes the Maryland Parole Commission, which makes decisions on parole for locally and state sentenced individuals, and the Division of Parole and Probation, which provides community supervision and operates the Drinking Driver Monitor Program. Exhibit 1 on page 3 shows an overview of the major spending areas. Personnel expenses for the nearly 1,200 regular positions in community supervision totals $130 million, or 90% of the allowance. The vast majority of authorized positions being parole and probation agents or drinking driver monitors. The breakdown of the proposed budget changes are shown in Exhibit 2 on page 4. Personnel costs increased by $3.7 million, mainly due to increases in retiree health insurance premiums. There is also an increase of $629,000 for security equipment, which will be discussed later in issue 1. There are also decreases of $3.6 million in salary adjustments and $362,000 in contractual security services. Moving on to personnel on page 5, there's a decrease of 3 regular positions and 11 contractual full-time equivalents in fiscal 2027. Vacancy reports indicate that community supervision has 92 vacancies as of December 2025, which is 10 vacancies below budgeted turnover. The first observation I would like to highlight is the Division of Parole and Probation safety efforts in response to the tragic murder of parole agent Davis Martinez on May 31st, 2024. Following Agent Martinez's murder, DPSES suspended home visits. Agents remained in contact with offenders through in-person office visits and video calls. In-person home visits did not resume until staff were equipped with upgraded state safety equipment and had completed training. The original restart date of home visits was June 1st, 2025, but was delayed. Field work would eventually resume on August 4th, 2025. DPP required home visits to be completed with at least 2 staff members or with law enforcement. Field staff who have resumed work in the field were equipped with ballistic vests, law enforcement grade pepper spray, and Bluetooth low energy tracking tags. The department indicated that by October 4th, 2025, home visits would fully resume for all cases, including moderate and low moderate risk cases. The department acquired several pieces of protective equipment for its agents. As of January 2025, it had equipped 639 of its agents with multi-threat ballistic vests. Agents were also given 3-ounce law enforcement grade Saber Red pepper spray. The type of pepper spray agents had previously used was for civilian use. In August 2025, the department began equipping its agents with iPhone 15 devices that would allow emergency text messages and location data to be sent to first responders when Wi-Fi or cellular service was not available. They are also using a new platform that is installed on agents' state-issued cell phones that tracks employee movements. And finally, agents were given Bluetooth low energy tags that allow agents to trigger distress alerts from their cell phones without physically handling their phones. All field-eligible staff are required to complete a training that includes defensive tactics, situational awareness, and training related to the new pepper spray and tracking devices. As of October 15th, 2025, the department reported 498 staff members had completed the required training and are cleared to return to field work. At the time, 255 staff members still needed to complete their training. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill withheld $150,000 in general funds until DPSES submitted a report on safety efforts for community service agents, which was submitted on October 15th, 2025. The DLS determined the report to be in compliance with the language and recommends the release of the general funds. DLS will process a letter to this effect if no objections are raised by the committees. The fiscal 2026 budget includes about $430,000 for the purchase of body-worn cameras for community supervision agents. The department indicated that a 1-year purchase order on October 15th, 2025 was awarded for the body-worn cameras. Regulations regarding the training, issuance, and use of body-worn cameras were issued by the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission and went into effect on January 5th of this year. A program to pilot the use of body-worn cameras was set to begin January 1st of this year, but was delayed as DPP continues to finalize its body-worn camera policy. The department and the labor union were set to begin negotiations on the structure and scope of body-worn camera policies last month. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill withheld $150,000 in general funds until DPSES submitted a report on the costs, policies, and training related to body-worn cameras for community supervision agents, which was submitted on January 1st, 2026. DLS determined the report to be in compliance with the language and recommends the release of the general funds. DLS will process a letter to this effect if no objections are raised by the committees. DLS also recommends adopting committee narrative requesting a report by October 1st, 2026 on DPP's efforts to improve the safety of community supervision agents and the progress of the implementation of body-worn cameras for parole and probation agents. The second observation I would like to discuss begins on page 8 regarding community supervision caseloads. Exhibit 3 on the next page shows the number of cases supervised in each category. The total number of cases supervised for fiscal 2025 was 86,714, an increase of 1.6%, or about 1,400 cases. The increase is largely driven by the rise of the number of probation cases. The American Probation and Parole Association, APPA, provides guidelines for caseloads depending on the risk levels of clients. DLS calculated the recommended caseload ratio for Maryland's community supervision agents is about 59 cases per year using those APPA metrics. Exhibit 4 on page 10 shows the average cases per agent by region compared to this calculation. All regions saw a decline in cases per agent in fiscal 2025, mainly driven by an increase in the number of agents. The Capital Region was the only region to not meet its recommended ratio. DLS recommends adopting committee narrative requesting that the annual report on DPP caseloads for parole and probation agents be submitted by September 15th, 2026. The last observation I will discuss begins on page 11 and relates to the delays in DPP's new risk assessment tool. DPP is required by statute to utilize an evidence-based risk needs assessment tool to assess and classify individuals brought under its supervision. In the past, two tools have been used: the initial risk screener, IRS, and the level of service inventory revised, LSIR. Between fiscal 2021 and 2024, DPSES contracted independent studies into whether its risk assessment tools were effectively predicting recidivism and whether they needed to be replaced or updated. The contractors found that LSIR tool should no longer be used as a risk assessment tool, but rather as a case planning tool. They found the IRS tool to be an effective predictor of recidivism and that it should be used as a primary tool for DPP while the department selects a new tool. However, since the contractor's recommendations in January 2024, there have been a number of delays in identifying a new tool. The department has said that it is in the process of procuring a new risk assessment tool and said it was anticipating an award in fall 2025 and that it would be ready to begin validation testing by the first quarter of fiscal 2027. The department should comment on whether the risk assessment tool contract was awarded and give an update on the status of its implementation. DLS also recommends adopting committee narrative requesting that the annual report on the implementation of the new DPP risk assessment tool be submitted by September 1st, 2026. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Weinstein? Okay, thank you. I'd like to call up Anthony Gaskins, Dr. Yolanda Bethia, and Ernest Ely. Mr. Gaskins, do you want to begin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Hedelman and members of the subcommittee. My name is Anthony Gaskins. I'm the Chief of Staff of the Department of Public Safety. I'm here on behalf of Secretary Scruggs, who is literally just wrapping up a departmental overview in the House. So you have me, sorry. With me today is Toyin Bakari, Acting Deputy Secretary of Administration, and Yolanda Bethea, Director of Parole and Probation. The department appreciates the collaboration with DLS and thanks Josh for his hard work on this analysis. In the analysis, DLS asked us to respond to one issue and 3 recommended actions. The department was asked to comment on the status of the risk assessment tool contract award and an update on the status of implementation. The risk assessment tool contract is currently in a pre-award phase under legal review as contract terms and required documentation are finalized. Once completed, the final contract documents will be submitted to the vendor for review and signature, and the Office of State Procurement will conduct a final review and bring the contract award before the Board of Public Works for approval. Implementation can begin once a notice to proceed is issued to the vendor. The implementation phase will require additional time for data gathering, configuration, and rollout activities before the tool can be fully deployed. A customized tool aligns with the risk assessment revalidation study, which recommended that DPP consider commissioning research into the development of a customized risk assessment tool to better identify individuals who pose an elevated risk of recidivism and crimes of violence. These enhancements are consistent with the risk need responsivity model, the national gold standard for evidence-based community supervision. Since February 2025, DPP has been preparing for the implementation of the new risk assessment tool by incorporating training and case management and risk needs responsivity. Additionally, the EPICS 2 trainer certification to establish a train-the-trainer model for evidence-based skills was completed with 10 trainers certified. This training program equips parole and probation agents with a specific set of evidence-based skills to use during routine client interactions beyond initial screening. This includes a variety of interactions centered on building relationships and behavioral analysis with an emphasis on problem solving. EPICS 2 in-service and academy training was deployed in January 2026 for DPP agents, supervisors, and drink and driving monitors. Given the need for a customized tool and the complexities involved in the implementation, the department is moving as fast as possible to secure the appropriate vendor and is eager to begin implementation. DLS has recommended DPSCS provide 3 reports on agency safety efforts, caseloads, and risk assessment tool implementation. The department agrees with these recommendations, and we are here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I have a question.
Okay.
Why has it taken so long?
I will defer the questions to Director Renee.
I mean, it's really a long time. I mean, it'll be 3 years, right? Since once you get it up and going, and that's without any more delays from now. That's your estimate now. So if this current risk, or when you went through the review of the risk assessment and you knew in 2024, why has it taken so long?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question, Madam Chair. And I will say that DPP has been working with our internal partners, our Director of Procurement very closely on this. And actually, our Director of Procurement is here and can actually talk about the technical pieces within procurement as to why this has taken a long time.
And what are you doing in the interim?
Good question. So in the interim, as it's stated in the report, we are using the initial risk screener to identify, and as it was recommended by the consultant who did the review of our instrument, and that is a validated tool. And so we are supervising persons as the results of that tool yields the results of the risk that's being identified there. But also, as of last year, we also have a social work unit in which we're doing case staffing. So on the cases where we have high-risk individuals, where there's additional questions, if there's additional safety concerns and things like that, we are doing also case staffings on those. So we're using the tool as well as using an interdisciplinary approach with our high-risk supervision persons.
If the person involved in procurement wants to comment further, I'll give you the opportunity.
Sure, I'd love to. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Kratzen. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. I'm Amanda Kratzen, Director of Procurement at Public Safety. It's nice to meet all of you. Sorry, I do have a little note that I do want to be able to look at while I talk to you. I know that it has taken a long time. The timeline does reflect a completion of several required elements, which included a development and a review of the sole source documentation, negotiation and finalization of contract terms, legal and IT review, along with sending it to Do It for review, vendor compliance and coordination across our programs, procurement, finance, DPP, and the oversight entities. And all these steps do ensure that the contract's compliant, defensible, and operationally sound.
Maybe we can talk further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And are there other questions? No? Okay. Okay, Mr. Ely, is this my only time to talk to you?
Madam Chair, it's so good to see you.
you.
Last year, we were sitting on this side of the table together.
We were.
Before you brought your signature legislation.
Yeah,
And,
I want to know how that's going.
For the record, I'm pleased to let you know that, but for the record, my name is Ernest Ely Jr. I'm chairman of the Maryland Parole Commission. And as it relates to geriatric parole, we are really in a good spot. We've identified the cases, about 152 of those thus far. We've eliminated 22 from that list because they're ineligible. They don't meet the criteria, but based on age and infraction and the years of incarceration, they didn't meet it. So what we're looking at right now is about 72 cases that might be in that particular category where we might have to refer them for the risk assessment. Our hearing officers are digging through that right now to make sure they meet eligibility. Of course, we don't want to bring anybody forth that do not meet the eligibility. In addition to that, as you know, Madam Chair, we've had a long wait list. Since November of last year, we reduced that by 36%, 55 cases. We had 152 cases on the risk assessment list in November. Now we have about 97, 100 around that, hover around there. And so our priority are the geriatric parole, the juvenile lifers, and the rest of the lifers. So that's our priority. We're really focused on that. We've hired another full-time psychologist. So we have 2 full-time psychologists. We just recently hired a part-time psychologist with the grant funding from GoCap. Really skilled individual, works full-time as a psychologist for the FBI. He'll be doing 1 day a week with us. We have several other candidates we need to interview by March. We expect to have 3 or 4 additional part-time psychologists on board by the end of March. So our goal is to reduce or eliminate that wait list by December. And then we could really meet the mandate. So about 45 days, we should have all of that list of cases vetted, and we'll be making those referrals to the psychologist for the risk assessment.
Okay. One of the, and the risk assessment, you're using a different risk assessment?
Oh, absolutely.
Than,
This is a comprehensive,
yeah.
totally different.
Okay, I'd like to talk offline, because I have heard that I made a visit December or so with JPR out in Jessup, and have heard that there's some challenges finding places in the community for older geriatric people who are making the transition.
Yes, and that's unfortunately that's always been a challenge.
Yeah.
But of course, social work are doing the best job they can.
And I have some ideas about that. And
I
just
appreciate
started
that. We
in fact,
appreciate
talk to somebody today about that.
Excellent.
So we'll connect.
Thank you so much.
Are you the best person or somebody in the department to talk to about that?
I'll be the point person.
Okay, perfect. Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. We have some public testimony. I'd like to call up Christian Goebel, Reneka Robinson, Michelle Mendenhall, and Jay Young, if you don't.
My apologies, Madam Chair. Agent Young was not able to make it today.
Okay.
And then let Michelle go up after.
You each have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, Chair Heddleman and members of the committee. My name is Reneka Robinson. I'm a parole and probation agent assigned to the Essex office. I'm also the extremely proud president of ASME Local 3661, which represents community corrections here in Maryland. I am a parole and probation agent that works in the, as a parole and probation agent, we work to provide our clients with the resources they need to help reduce the likelihood of returning to incarceration. One of the things that we struggle with a lot is staffing. the staffing issues that we have, like in Gaithersburg, we have agents with 100 active cases, 330 total cases. This doesn't allow them to do things like help their clients get housing or substance abuse resources, or even in Hagerstown where we have agents with 130 to 140 active cases or 270 total. Being unable to provide our clients with those resources definitely increases their likelihood of returning or creating another victim within our communities. We also have shortages with other positions like our office professionals. That causes our agents and our monitors to have to work and do desk work opposed to monitoring our clients in the community. What we desperately need is for our state to invest in those who invest in public safety. We need wages and pay increases that allow us to not only attract but retain employees. That's actually it.
Good afternoon, Chair Heddleman, members of the committee. My name is Christian Goebel. I serve as Legislative and Political Coordinator with AFSCME Maryland Council 3. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. As you've heard from President Robinson today, many members of AFSCME who work in community supervision continue to experience challenges with understaffing, high caseloads, and stressful work environments that place their safety at risk. More work must be done moving forward to address the conditions in the Department of Parole and Probation, as outlined by the report issued by the American Correctional Association that examined the conditions in the department. Following the aftermath of Agent Martinez's tragic death, the American Correctional Association conducted an investigation and independent review to examine the circumstances surrounding the death of Agent Martinez. Additionally, they worked to identify possible operational gaps, offer recommendations with the intent of improving the safety of staff, enhance communication, and increase agency performance and effectiveness. This review was conducted by the ACA between July and August of 2025 and included documentary review of relevant materials such as policies, training manuals, and budget documents, and incident reports. Additionally, ACA representatives conducted field site visits to DPP field offices throughout the state, interviews with staff, DPSCS leadership, AFSCME representatives, and an anonymous survey was distributed to all DPP staff. And on that note, I would like to highlight a few key results that were revealed from the staff survey. Nearly 65% of survey respondents stated staffing levels are not sufficient to ensure safe and effective fieldwork operations. More than 2/3 of staff rated their morale in the field office in which they work as low or very low. 82% of survey respondents described the rollout of new internal agency initiatives and operational changes as unclear or disorganized. 85% of staff reported that technical and equipment issues are resolved in a timely manner only sometimes, rarely, or never. All of these issues that are reported in this survey corroborate the concerns that are raised by our members continuously. They need proper staffing, and to do that, we need competitive compensation to attract more folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Heldman and members of the committee. As they explained, our parole and probation, or community supervision, I'll go ahead and just start into the issues. I've been a state employee for 21 years, so I had a lot to say, and I didn't know I only had 2 minutes, so I'm gonna jump in this. I'll say that basically staffing is our hugest issue. Our specialized agents in our case, in our house alone, actually have 3 agents worth of general caseloads that had to get divided out between all the, because there's just not enough agents outside of helping out with the clerical duties because we don't have enough of the clerical staff. We run out of supplies often as far as the supply issues. We run out of paper, pens, Post-its, notes, cartridges, even the gloves we have to use to be able to fingerprint people. Half of our desk phones don't work. My laptop was taken as well as the rest of the clerical staff because we didn't have enough laptops for the agents and monitors. So now your clerical staff, who are your lowest paid, have to be there every day. We get no telework days. We have to use our own leave if the weather's bad, everything like that, just because we don't have equipment. Yes, to the senator who was asking about pens, we need pens. We need another intake reviewer. We need FS1s. it's such a huge issue right now. Keeping in mind that we deal with drug treatment and drug and alcohol situations, we deal with the sex offenders and all the common registrations they have and all the domestic bond stuff, and getting people to pay restitution that needs to be paid. The agents are spending so much time just doing so much more than what they should have to do that they can't concentrate on those very, very important things that help keep Maryland safe. I mean, I just don't feel that we're getting the job done. And as far as a pay, I can tell you personally, the clerical staff, and you can look at all of the charts, I can start a job as a starting salary and make like $5,000 or $6,000 more than I am at nearly retirement in my career. If you look at that with no telegram thing, you're not going to be able to get staff, you're not going to be able to keep staff. So we really need to do something to make sure we're competitive for the future.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, that concludes the Community Supervision Office. We are going to move on to Police and Correctional Training Commissions and ask Mr. Weinstock to present the analysis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, I'll be presenting the budget for the Police and Correctional Training Commissions within DPSCS. The PCTC provides staffing and administrative services to two commissions, the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission, MPTSC, and the Maryland Correctional Training Commission. The Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission sets the minimum selection and training standards for police officers, while the Maryland Correctional Training Commission sets them for parole and probation, juvenile justice, and correctional personnel. PCTC also staffs and operates the Public Education and Training Center in Sykesville. The fiscal 2027 budget totals $13.3 million, which is a decrease of $491,000 or 3.6%. Exhibit 1 on page 3 displays the fiscal 2027 allowance categorized by major spending area. 64% is dedicated to personnel costs for instructors and administration at approximately $8.6 million. An additional $2 million in special funds is included in the PCTC budget from the Maryland Police Training and Correctional Standards Commission Fund to provide resources that enhance law enforcement training and support commission activities. The fiscal 2027 allowance decreases by approximately $491,000 as shown in Exhibit 2 on page 4, which breaks down the itemized changes by expense type. The largest changes include a decrease of $640,000 in rent, $256,000 in turnover expectancy to increase the budgeted turnover to 7%, and an increase of $374,000 in employee and retiree health insurance premiums. Moving on to personnel on page 5, the fiscal 2027 allowance provides 77 regular positions, an increase of 1 position from the working appropriation in 2026. Exhibit 3 on page 6 shows the fluctuation of monthly vacancies from a low of 3 vacancies in January 2024 to a high of 15 vacancies in December 2024. The most recent vacancy data shows 5 vacancies in December 2025. The observation I would like to highlight today relates to the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission Fund. This fund receives $2 million each year through special fund court fees. Historically, it has not been utilized at the rate that matches its growth, resulting in significant fund balance. Exhibit 4 on page 7 shows the Police Training Fund revenues, expenditures, and estimated balances from fiscal 2019 to fiscal 2027. Before fiscal 2024, the agency had used the fund for a few items, but was slow to expend resources. It spent less than $750,000 combined between fiscal 2019 and 2023, leaving a starting fund balance in fiscal 2024 of $9.6 million. In response to consistent underutilization, the BRFA of 2024 expanded allowable uses in fiscal 2024 and 2025 to include correctional training and equipment needs. In fiscal 2024, PCTC reported increased expenditures of $2.4 million. However, $2 million of that was due to a transfer of funds to support other PCTC functions. The BRFA of 2025 authorized the governor to transfer up to $5 million from the fund to the general fund by the end of fiscal 2025. The starting balance in fiscal 26 was approximately $4.9 million. In fiscal 2027, the projected starting balance is also $4.9 million. However, that assumes that spending in fiscal 2026 will be $2 million, which exceeds recent actual spending. A few of the significant projects currently used by the MPTSC fund: annual maintenance and licensing fees of about $500,000 for 5 years starting in fiscal 2024 for the Learning Management System Replacement Project. The new system tracks public safety professionals' certification throughout their careers and information on course and class history, student attendance, firearm qualifications, and other information. The Simulation Training Environment Project at the Public Education and Training Center in Sykesville will construct multiple small buildings to offer a realistic community setting for practical, scenario-based training. The estimated construction cost is between $5 and $7 million. The state has awarded the design contract for the project for about $1 million. Construction is expected to take 2 years and begin later this year. The fund also supports general operating and administrative expenses for the police and correctional training commissions, such as mandated training for the members of the Administrative Charging Committee and trial boards. DPSCS should provide the anticipated Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission Fund expenditures for each project in fiscal 2026 and 2027. The department should also discuss projects that have been prioritized for fiscal 2027 and 2028. Given that the estimated MPTSC fund balance at the start of fiscal 2027 is approximately $5 million, the Department of Legislative Services recommends adding a provision to the BRFA of 2026 to authorize the transfer of $2 million of this balance to the general fund in fiscal 2026. DLS concurs with the governor's allowance. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, thank you. I'd like to call up Mr. Gaskins again and Kate Gossard, Executive Director of the Maryland Police and Standards Commission.
Good afternoon again, Chair Heineman and members of the committee. Again, I'm Anthony Gaskins, Chief of Staff of the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. With me are Kate Gossard, Executive Director of Public Safety Education and Training Center, and Wayne Silver, the Executive Director of the Police Training and Standards Commission. The department appreciates the collaboration with the Department of Legislative Services and thanks Josh for his hard work on this analysis. We were asked by DLS to respond to one issue and one recommended action. The department was asked to provide the anticipated MPTSC fund expenditures for each project in FY26 and 27, as well as discuss projects that have been prioritized for FY27 and 28. Since the beginning of FY26, the department has spent $500,000 from the fund on behalf of the commission covering the expenses and training of the Police Accountability Board, Administrative Charging Committee, and the Trial Board. Also on the speaker series, which provides impactful speakers who discuss best practices to establish effective leadership teams. The professional development for instructional staff and leaders to acquire new skills, enhance their knowledge, and improve job performance. Specialized equipment such as handheld radios for the Police Entry-Level Academy and firearms range simulators for police and correctional officers. And finally, physical agility and conditioning equipment for both police and correctional academy trainees. The department anticipates an additional $700,000 of spending from the fund for the remainder of FY26. The primary expenses include additional commission activities, the speaker series, and professional development. The Learning Management System annual software license and maintenance costs, and IT infrastructure upgrades for the main administration building and all the classrooms. Classroom upgrades and the library transformation into a police and correctional commission meeting room with audio, video, and recording capabilities. For FY27, the department has prioritized the continuation of funding expenses for general commission upgrades, training, and activities. As a top priority for the department, $3 million are being placed in reserves for the construction phase of the scenario-based simulation training environment. $1.2 million has already been spent on the architectural and engineering design, which is scheduled for completion by the end of the calendar year. For FY28, the department has prioritized the construction phase of the simulation training environment, general commission and associated board activities, funding for the service and contractual obligations such as the learning management system and the real-time emergency alert system. DLS has recommended adding a provision to the 2026 BRFA authorizing the transfer of $2 million of MPTSC fund balance to the general fund for FY26. The department respectfully disagrees with the transfer of the $2 million from the fund to the general fund. It is important to note that the $5 million starting fund balance for fiscal year 27 accounts for multi-year contractual obligations and a significant long-term capital construction project estimated to cost $5 to $7 million. These contractual obligations and long-term capital projects represent a large portion of anticipated expenses. The department budgets for these projects from MPTSC fund to be financial obligations for multi-year contracts. Additionally, the Department of General Services requires total funding availability for the capital project to move forward. A funding reduction would have a devastating impact on the construction of the scenario-based simulation training environment, which will benefit law enforcement officers, correctional officers, and mandated staff of parole and probation. We strongly believe a scenario-based training environment is needed to address the challenges our public safety professionals face every day. The current needs of public safety have raised the standard of learning and highlighted the need for specialized training that allows students to demonstrate and practice crisis response and de-escalation techniques involved with community members. This project provides a high-fidelity training environment where law enforcement and other public safety professionals can bridge the gap between classroom instruction and real-world application. The projects anticipated to be completed in the current fiscal year and the projected years represent the current and future needs of law enforcement and correctional training. We're happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Any questions? Where are you located and where is this simulation environment being built?
Good afternoon. We're located in Sykesville, Maryland, and Carroll County.
Okay.
And the scenario-based training environment will be on our campus.
Okay, and your campus now does not have any real
Scenario-based.
I mean, because I know we've been in Baltimore County, the Baltimore County Police has it. I've actually been to a private gun range in my district that has an amazing simulator that law enforcement uses regularly. And I'm just curious why the need to make this sort of investment.
I'll be happy to answer that, Senator. Well, we have some of the things similar to what you probably saw at the private range where we have virtual reality systems and we have judgment shooting systems. What this will do is it's an actual village. It's a set of buildings where we can put the student into a real life situation where they actually have to react to the sounds, the senses, the smells, everything in the actual environment. If a parole and probation officer is going to do a check, they're going to go to an apartment to do it. If a police officer has to respond to a convenience store, he's going into a convenience store to do it with all the setup. The other additional thing we have to this is that we can actually videotape them in there as well, so that we can go back and critique how they de-escalated, how they handled interacting with an individual with crisis. So it's very dynamic in how we're able to use it.
Okay, Senator Stelling?
No, I appreciate it. So how many officers do we have to say they're going to get this type of training? Do you have a number? We don't have an exact number. We actually certify 15,500 police officers in the state of Maryland. And yes, there are some other facilities and other training academies that allow it. But the unique thing about Sykesville is that we can tailor to not only our academy and the Department of Natural Resources Academy and Corrections and Parole Probation and Maryland State Police, is that we can make these resources available to smaller departments who don't have the resources to do that. They can schedule to use them as well. Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious. Oh, Senator Lewis Young, go ahead.
Yeah,
it's occurring to me, to what extent do you collaborate and share resources with other departments? I mean, I know for a while in Frederick, for example, there was separate training for county and for city police, and then they got together and they had one program and then they separated again. When I was in a totally different policy world, we worked with the hospitals to take an inventory called bed registry so that you knew in real time who had other resources. How do you all work together to gain greater efficiencies of not only your training resources, but your facility resources?
Good afternoon. Thank you for that question. Our training center, the concept was designed for the Public Safety Training Center to be the regionally located training facility for all public safety professionals. So it is available at no cost for all of our client agencies. As you know, many agencies now have their own training facilities, but they are lacking in some of the resources that we can provide. So we not only have the resource that they can bring their instructors in and conduct their own training, but training that we host is in response to their needs. So we do bring in specialized trainers to teach on specific topics and utilize our resources. So all of our clients are part of our communication portal and our website that they receive weekly notices of all the trainings we offer.
Okay, so there's no real force or mandate to try to encourage everyone to use facility and training resources and consolidate. There's no real incentive not for everyone to do their own thing.
There is no mandate, and no, there's no need for them to come to us. But again, our location is convenient for many agencies that don't have their own facilities. But unfortunately, we are lacking in some of the resources that the counties and other larger agencies have been able to design on their own. So we continue to be an available resource for all of our client agencies. And like I said, the training that we offer, we produce that training in a way that it meets most of the agency's needs, but certainly every agency is going to determine training specific to their own policies.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that will conclude our hearing for today. Thank you.